Hello, uglies, and welcome to another patron-only show where we're discussing season 2, episodes 3 and 4 of Dragula. That's right. I'm so excited. Not only do we have Tyler here tonight to discuss this with us, Allison, unfortunately, is not able to join us. She's spending some well-meaning and well-needed time with family tonight.
Yeah.
But we do have another family member with us tonight. That's right. We have Aussie Chris Dixon in the house. That's right. Our patron guest for the week. Chris, how are you doing?
G'day, how's it going? I figured I had to start off with g'day. It's only
G'day.
appropriate.
I love it.
G'day, mate. We'll throw another shrimp on the barbie. Just
There we
we don't actually say that, by the way. That's such a cliche. That's a thing of the past.
Yeah, but that's like what like Americans think of whenever they like a stereotypical like Australian. Like that's exactly the stuff they say.
We'll either say like throw shrimp on the barbie, or we'll say what's the other one? We'll say we'll go nar. We'll try to say no, like nar.
Or dingo's got you, baby.
Oh yeah.
I don't think I've heard the dingo. Oh, I've heard it like vaguely, but I don't know that one too well. But yeah, we'll say like nah.
It's based off that woman who literally did have a dingo eat her baby, and in like the late 80s, I think it was, or the early 90s.
Right. I thought we were like talking about some dark web stuff or something.
No. And then there's and then people will say crikey. And that's the other one.
Oh yeah, that was a Steve Irwin thing. If you know who he is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just to give you guys a heads up, my boyfriend's coming in like just a second to like hand off the puppy. So if I like peace out for like just a second to hand her off, that's why. But
don't worry, we will talk about you behind your back. It's okay.
Honestly, I deserve it always. So like that's totally fine.
Mm-hmm.
I was just about to say, like, I was gonna actually mention this in front of Allison. It's probably not too appropriate right now, but like, I'm quite new to Big Brother. But I've at least seen seasons 1 to 4, whereas Tyler hasn't apparently. So there we go.
Yeah, I have only seen seasons 5 and up. So like between you and I, we have seen all the Big Brother seasons.
Exactly, it's so strange. Like, but anyway,
that is funny.
I also haven't seen. I think the only one I could potentially add to this situation is that I've seen Over the Top to really make it complete.
Yeah,
but,
that's true.
I am not a big. I've only watched seasons 10, because we did it last year. I've seen 10 and then 15 through 22.
Yeah,
and then including Over the Top and BB Can 9. That's it.
Yeah, I just thought I'd throw that one in there. Obviously, it's got nothing to drag, but
no, that's okay. We love just like chatting with our patrons about everything. But Beth, we are here to talk about the spooky. I changed the background to a bloody mess because I actually really enjoyed these 2 episodes.
Good. So, Chris, are you familiar with Drag Race, Dragula, or is this kind of your first introduction to a show like this?
So, for a bit of context, so first of all, I'm not LGBT QI, unfortunately. Not quite at that. So I can't quite relate in that sense.
You're obviously an ally, so that's all that matters.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes, exactly.
So I say that because it wasn't until last year I properly knew what drag was. For a while, I thought the drag race was in reference to car racing, especially when they say start your engines, because, you know, it only sounds right. But then I quickly realised it was what it is, and I watched...
A good pun.
Yeah, very good pun, that's for sure. So I watched one episode of the American version last year, and I intended on watching more, but I just was too busy. That was when we had all those Survivor seasons happening at the same time and all that stuff. It was just an absolute crate. And also the pandemic starting, all that stuff. So it was like, you know, I tried to keep up with it, but I couldn't. But I liked it. And then I sort of took a massive break because I remember I think the next season was All Stars. I think something like that for RuPaul. So I sort of was like, I don't want to watch an All Stars season. And then we eventually had the Australian one announced. Have you seen the Australian one at all?
I've been watching Down Under, and I have, and I gotta tell you, I really am not liking it, and it's not because of the queens. Wow. It's because of production. Like, production has overproduced this to the. It's like they didn't care when they put this together.
It did feel a bit like that. I've only seen the first couple of episodes, but
it's also just like there's 2 queens on there. One of which who's the front runner in the competition, who has been photographed and has many like images online that you can look up doing blackface and like wearing turbans and appropriating indigenous and like Aboriginal cultures. And it's just like, come on, you can't do that. And then like they made a big point about it this past episode.
Oh, okay, and that's good to know.
Yeah,
I read somewhere that happened a few years ago and they sort of moved on. But that's good to know that they actually
hashed it out. But the way they hashed it out, I don't think they handled it well, because they basically made it like, like RuPaul's. They had a conversation in the workroom, and then they're on the main stage, and RuPaul goes, "Now, Scarlett, I want to ask you. It's come to my attention that you have photographs of yourself online in blackface. What do you want to say about that?" And of course, she broke down and said, like, obviously, I was young and stupid, and I didn't really understand the effects of this and how awful it is, and I apologize, and I want to do better, and blah blah blah, which is like all fine and good. But to the point, another queen, et cetera, had backstage, which was, how can you not know in this day and age that that's okay, like not okay to do? Like this isn't just like a joke. And clearly through all the other appropriative things that she's done, like this isn't just like some young thing that she did like a couple years ago. Like this was ingrained as a racist issue. So regardless, it turns into RuPaul then saying, "I know there's a lot of people out there that want me to cancel you, but I think it's better to just give you some grace and mercy and move through," as if RuPaul is the defining factor as to whether or not it's okay to do blackface. So it just like made it all bad. And then the one queen who called her out on it went home in that episode. And we were like, what the heck? Like the one person who like really spoke out against it is the one that goes. So it's just like, it's not doing it for me, and for a variety of reasons.
That's fine. So. I mean, for me, it's obviously I can relate to it and stuff. I mean, obviously everything, but yeah, like.
But you have some pretty awesome queens who are on that season who are from Australia. So if I'm ever make it down under, there are hopefully queens I get to see when I'm down there. So.
Well, I don't know if you know or not, but it's actually filmed in Auckland, I think, in New Zealand.
Yeah, it's in New Zealand. They had to go to the COVID haven.
Yeah. It was pretty crazy. Sydney was in a terrible place at the point. I think I meant to film in Sydney or something like that, and then I had to end up switching. And that was before we had because obviously New Zealand's another country, despite the fact that it's down under. So we actually, I'm pretty sure we only opened up the borders to fly to New Zealand about like last month or something. So I can imagine that would have been a crazy to organize, even though New Zealand.
I can't even imagine. I think that might be maybe what we're seeing too, but it's like they've overproduced like the storylines and such. But regardless, we're going to talk a little bit about Dragula. Dragula is a very campy, but also has a very different feel to the show than Drag Race does. This is much more about horror, glamour, and filth. So, excuse me, those are the three pillars.
Horror, and messy drama backstage. That's like very unfiltered, very like like Chris, you were just talking about like weird production in like Australian Drag Race. Like I feel like it's like the total opposite for something like this, where like the production is so like minimal that like the whole show depends on the drama that like all these queens have with each other, because they all know each other, and it's just like so layered and so like heavy. And then like the looks are just like so insanely good and like so well developed that like you don't need like all this like glitz and glam around you when like it's literally like makeup artists like perfection. Like it's so freaking good.
Oh yeah, no, you're totally right.
This is where I think a lot of people, when you watch Drag Race nowadays, not so much in the earlier seasons, but nowadays, most of the outfits that the queens are coming to the show with were made for them. They might have been a part of the design process or had a say in it, or maybe they did elements of it, but normally they've had many hands touch it or professionals touch it. With Dragula, for the most part, it's the queens putting it together themselves, maybe with the help of a few other people. Yeah, so you really get a good sense of the craftsmanship and design that these queens can come up with. That is just, in my opinion, a real showcase of what drag has been about for a long time, whether it originated from the ball scene or not, which is this idea of taking what you can and making something absolutely fabulous and outstanding and over the top with it. So the first episode that we talk about today, we're going to kind of go through the looks and talk about each queen. But the first episode was the Rock Band Challenge, this was the first time they did it. They did repeat this challenge in season 3. But the Rock Band Challenge separates the two queens, or the queens into two different groups. And this is also just like a point of reference that's just a little different from other reality shows. Clearly, because of the issues the fake had with scheduling, this is not just go back to your hotel and be sequestered. This is like people actually are still living their lives while they're filming this. So because Kendra could not get together to do a lot of rehearsing, and obviously that was a big issue with them.
That would explain that. Then I didn't really understand that whatsoever, I guess, because you're not thinking that it's like filmed in, 2017? Was it filmed or something?
Yeah, this would have been filmed in like 2017 or 2018, something like that.
Because obviously if it was being done now, they'd be going to quarantine and everything like that. Like you always forget that when you watch the show in retrospect.
And I'll say, like, Kendra she had a line in this episode where she said, like, I'm excited for this. Like, I feel like I'm more like performance drag. And I thought that was like foreshadowing her to like win this challenge. But she ended up going home in this episode, which really surprised me.
She sure did. And I think a lot of it came down to like the group at the end of the day did not do as well of a performance as PMS did. And that's a moment to say PMS did a great performance, because in my experience, PMS has only brought out the worst performance in me ever.
Yeah. I didn't know what the hell was going with that name. I was like, I thought it was standing for pissing myself.
Oh, yeah.
But then I did a Google search. I'm like, right, I definitely know what it stands for.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah.
That is so funny.
But it's a creative name. I'll give them props for that, despite the fact that it's a little bit offensive, I imagine. Like,
but something like that, I'd rather that they call themselves PMS and be like an edgy group, because, like, you know what? PMS makes me feel like I'm freaking edgy, so why not? Versus, like, if they were just openly, like, making fun of, like, vaginas or the, like,
for sure,
whatever, then that'd be an issue.
Much. Yeah.
So the whole point of this episode was that there were two different rock groups that were kind of randomly assigned. Bitch Pudding, who was in the bottom of last week's episode, or like the Wild West episode, after everybody had been piling on her, becomes one team captain. And Victoria Elizabeth Black, who had won the Wild West episode, becomes the other team captain. And then not only did they have to do a group performance of the same song, which the one thing I hate about this episode is that we had to listen to the same song fully twice. Like, and they did it again in season 3, but I was just like, couldn't you choose to like edit the two groups together so we only see one song? I don't know.
Yeah.
I understand why they do it.
As well. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can sort of get it because the performances are very different as well. They weren't the exact same. They were so different. I actually, to be honest, when I watched it, I'd forgotten that they were playing to the same song, and I was like a minute into, I'm like, hang on, that says exactly the same. Like,
you're getting like deja vu in the moment.
Away. Gone and pissed it away. Like, I could just, okay, I heard it again. But then they also had to put together their own rock look, which had to be more of a glam rock inspired look for it.
I will say, just a housekeeping note, I guess like the gifts of like the all the looks for episode 3 are not available.
No worries.
So we only have the challenge looks to go off of for this episode. But honestly, like Chris said it like at the top, like I feel like the looks were kind of all in the similar kind of like your stereotypical like Kiss,
that's exactly what I thought of.
Bon Jovi,
like, Kiss.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And Kendra Onyx was even like doing like the tongue sticking out thing, which like Kiss is like definitely known for. But I really love my 80s rock, so this episode spoke to me on a spiritual level. Like them opening I love like the little like monologue like scene intro thing that the two hosts do at the beginning. They dropped all of these rock songs, like Pour Some Sugar on Me, Highway to Hell, Welcome to the Jungle, Living on a Prayer. Like they named like all of like the good ones, which I loved.
And it wasn't just the title of the songs. Oftentimes they were like famous lines from those songs as well. So they just, oftentimes those beginning little vignettes are going to be things that are, yes, super campy. They're not meant to actually scare you. They're there to like kind of introduce what you might be getting from that episode. So yes, we get the rock, all those rock references in the very beginning. And then in the beginning of the 4th episode, we get this whole alien story where they've crash landed on Earth, and they turn Israel from being a park ranger into their basically like slave boy who does all of their work for them, is kind of like the equivalent of the pit crew on the show.
Yeah.
Once again, pit crew, like I was saying before, like I thought this was a car racing show. Like
yeah, exactly. And that's exactly why they went for all of it. Yeah, because all the puns and such. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, so I know that we can't really see all of the outfits, but did anything for the individual outfits of the Rock episode kind of stand out to either of you? Either in a good or a bad way?
To be honest, I'm a little bit fadey on it. Like I was saying, like Kiss was just reminded me of Kiss for the most part. Like that was it. It was the PMS group, wasn't it? That mostly wore the Kiss outfits.
Yeah. So they're the ones on the
pretty. Yes, that was probably what stood out the most because we saw the most of it. I seem to remember somebody had kind of greenish hair. I guess that's probably the one that's on the GIF right now, isn't it?
On the on the
James Majesty did.
Yeah.
Like drums. Yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
Yeah, like Chris said, like I feel like this theme is so like zoomed in terms of like what the aesthetic can be, like what you can pull from. So of course, like basically everybody had like the big like teased hair and everything like that. I feel like Erica in particular, because I said last week that like I'm rooting for her, but I feel like this theme was like really tough for her to put her like techno like anime spin on, which is weird because she was safe for the first time. Right. Yeah.
Well, and she was safe because she was in the winning group, honestly, at the end of the day. I feel like if she'd been in the bottom, I think we would have seen her up for elimination again. When it comes to the individual looks, I have to say this challenge walked so season 3 could run, but season 3 did it so much better. Like season 3's version of this episode is my favorite episode of season 3. It's
Tell us
so
why.
good. So there is a couple reasons. One, this came across like the song they had to do was like 2006 quote unquote pop punk sounding. Like it didn't sound like super edgy. So it kind of like, in my opinion, their outfits almost looked a little too hardcore for the song. So the song they choose in season 3 is like a woman metal band, and it's amazing. So it kind of brings that intensity, but it's also a woman singing it that I just like
that
love.
That would suit the show way better, in my opinion, having a woman sing it. I mean, the acting is girls, so it would make total sense like to have a female lead.
Definitely. And then on top of that, just like the individual looks, like this is going to sound crazy, but over the past few years, so season 3 has a drag king in it named Landon Sider. And Landon is just so amazing. And out of drag, Landon is like an incredible, like Mexican lesbian woman from LA, like great. But in drag, in that particular episode, I found myself so confused with how I felt because I was like, I'm so attracted like to this person. Like, oh my God, like amazing. So like, I can't tell you how often I watched it over and over just to be like, I really like how he looks. This is
you need that fan for you.
Yes. Like, I mean, like, honestly, I so rarely have that experience, but I was just like, like it. But I also just feel like in general, I felt like there was a little bit more rock themed here. Like there's some of the individual looks in season 2. You have like Kendra doing this weird like spider outfit, which makes no sense for a rock theme. You have Erica who's trying to bring her anime character to it. Doesn't really work. You have some people who kind of casually look like they're rockers. Like, even as much as I like Victoria Elizabeth Black's like androgynous, like no shirt, but like that kind of dreaded purple hair kind of look, it's also like just not, I don't get like hardcore rocker, glam rocker from it. I just kind of get like Brooklyn hipster from it more than anything else. So
yeah,
I felt like they did a better job in season 3 with this challenge. But all of that said, how did you all feel about the challenge? Like, what did you like the most about it? What didn't you like?
Go ahead, Chris.
Okay, sure. Well, I'll say that I personally thought, well, this is obviously a little bit of reference to last week. Like, episodes 1 and 2 felt very slow for me in terms of the tasks. Like, this is a massive step up in my opinion. It just felt a lot more. Something about it just felt more lively. You know, I think it was a music aspect because obviously, like, you know, when they're doing the photo shoots, it's, you know, I don't know, something about it kind of feels a bit empty, like, because there's not, you know, any dialogue, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it was nice to have like a bit of like a song, even if the song was kind of, you know, metalheadish, you know, like very, you know, whatever, and it was on repeat. It was nice to have that bit of change, and yeah, like, I mean, I personally, like, I'm not a huge rock and roll fan, although funny thing is, I've actually been to a Kiss concert.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was only 15 years old. It was, what, 6 years ago? Yeah, I did not enjoy it. I'll be
Did you
honest.
paint your face?
No. Oh. So what happened was my it was a very last minute thing actually. My dad and his best friend, like, I'm pretty sure the best friend got the tickets. So I sort of went on a whim kind of, and I just I just came along just for the ride, and it was okay. I mean, most of the songs I hadn't heard of. They only really played their major hits at the end. So it was a little bit of a disappointment, but I can at least say I've seen them live, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I guess like it kind of brought me back to that, which, I mean, even though, like I said, I didn't love being there in person, it was still like nice to experience a concert like that, especially with Kiss of all bands, you know.
Yeah, totally.
So yeah, it kind of was a bit of a, you know, it was a nice task. Like I said, it was nice to sort of, you know, get them a bit more lively on the show and stuff like that. And yeah, I just think music in general is quite good on a lot of challenges and stuff like that.
Yeah. I'll say I shared the same opinion as Chris in terms of, like, I feel like these 2 episodes felt a lot more organized in terms of, like, my thoughts and, like, keeping all the queens straight. And also, like, I will say I feel like we had like a therapy session last week on this show with me and Monarchy in terms of, like, Leatherface just like freaking me the fuck out.
Yeah.
I am so much better now that Monarchy is gone.
Yeah, I kind of felt the same way. Like, I feel like really I didn't like Monique at all, and I also didn't get the aesthetic, and that's not necessarily for me to get, but like I was kind of like good riddance when she left. Yeah. And the first, I would have loved to have seen a little bit more of Felony. There's always a part of me that's like, man, it would have been really cool to see Monique go first episode, but she so wasn't going to go home after the needles. But
yeah.
Do you agree that Bitch Pudding, who was the lead singer for the winning band PMS, and then had that kind of like Pete Burns, like glam rock individual look, the big tease up hair, do you think that she should have won? Do you agree with that?
Yes. I had in my notes, Bitch Pudding had the best look, in my opinion. So I will stand by that. I think she had a nice little redemption arc from last week.
So just for a bit of correction, I guess you could say. So Bitch Pudding was the one who did the whole guitar with the disco ball, right?
No, that was
okay.
That was James Majesty came out with the chainsaw and the disco ball.
Yeah, so unfortunately,
came out with the big teased up hair, and just looked really. Actually, she's the only one, in my opinion, that really looked like a proper glam rock drag queen. I think everybody else kind of just went for like rock, but she went for like glam rock, which was very like Pete Burns, very to a certain extent, even David Bowie, like that kind of like androgynous, like could be guy, could be girl. Look at, can you even tell? Who cares? That's the whole point, kind of thing.
I didn't even think about David Bowie, but that would be like a good inspo to pull from for this episode.
Like I said, unfortunately couldn't quite tell them apart very well then because I thought it was a disco ball. But yeah, I want to talk about that though. I thought that was amazing, like the chains were on a disco ball. I just thought it was a really cool, like, effect and everything like that. Basically that whole performance, particularly at the very end when they're like smashing the guitars and stuff, that was really fun and sort of made sense.
Totally. There's no limitation in terms of like the props that you can use for this show. Like last week we had like a fortune teller box thing on fire. This week we have like a chainsaw cutting through a disco ball. So like I just love like that there are like no like set like rule, like it feels very ruleless in terms of like what they are allowed to do, which is really fun, very creative.
And on season 3 there's a queen called Hollow Eve who is they're assigned female at birth, but I believe they're non-binary. I could be wrong about that, or gender fluid. But their drag is very filth oriented, and so everything is like anything you see on the season for filth, multiply it because they're just filthy. And one of the things that they do is a lot of like needles, like actual syringes sticking out of their face and such. And in this particular challenge, that is something that happens that's really gross to me. But it's an interesting thing. But just talking about like how there's like literally no limits, and it feels like, I think that it's definitely not something that goes away with this show.
And I will say I was better about this elimination than I was like the past two in terms of like, which is weird because like a tattoo is like a permanent fixture on your body. But I feel like I'm kind of like numb to that idea because I have tattoos. So I wanted to ask the two of you, if you were in this elimination, what would your tattoo be?
So what's weird about this particular season, it's like they made them get Dragula and then something else, where that has not been the case before.
Interesting.
Or in another, like I think next season they make all the 3 people who are in the bottom, one person has to choose a tattoo for each person. So you don't even get to choose your own tattoo. And that the next season, it's always something really freaking stupid. I could be wrong. Maybe it's this season. I don't remember. They do that later. But I don't care if other people have tattoos. I actually would be like, because not just because of the pain thing, because that's temporary. I have such a commitment issue. Like the idea of having something so permanent on me, I'm like, what would I get? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I'd be the same. I don't have any tattoos or anything like that. But yeah, you kind of put me on the spot a little bit there, Tyler. I should have expected this question though, to be fair, because it was a pretty big part of the episode. But like, I wouldn't have a clue what to put on. Like, it sounds like we'd have to put the word Dragula on, which, by the way, I thought it said piranha.
Oh, okay.
I glanced slightly because at first when I was writing it, I saw D-R-A-G, and I'm like, it must be Dragula. And then I sort of showed the finished plot. I'm like, what, piranha? What, slot piranha? What the hell?
I think I would get a fan
that said
Dragula on it.
I like it.
And maybe a seltzer, maybe an elephant fanning themselves with a fan that says Dragula drinking a seltzer. There you go. It's all 3 of my things.
I think I would have like a lion that has like blood like dripping from like the fangs, and the blood like spells like Dragula underneath.
Ooh, okay. Come through, design.
Because my last name is Lyons, and I've always wanted like a lion tattoo. So just getting that on like the front of my quad, I think would be the move. What about you, Chris? Thing.
Where would you put it?
Oh god. I probably for the spot, I'd probably go to the back just because I don't know, it just seems like an appropriate spot because obviously, unless I'm a freaking model, I'm not going to be walking around shirtless all day.
Yeah.
So at least I can sort of hide
it. Do you mean upper back, mid back, tramp stamp?
Maybe mid back, I reckon.
There we go.
And actually, I just thought of one just came to me. So I've actually got a lot of moles on my back.
Okay.
Thankfully no melanomas, which is good. I could maybe get a tattoo of a mole. Except make it like, look kind of, amplified and, something like that. Yeah.
I like, I saw somebody who I know who has to get a lot of like infusions and such, and they have like all these like little scars. And so what they want to do is like get a tattoo where like the scars are like the inside of like a flower or something like that. So they kind of tattoo around it, make it part of art. So I thought maybe what you were going to, it's a great idea. I thought maybe what you were going to say was like somehow incorporate that, like your balls into some kind of art or something. But I like that, like going for like a fake ball.
It just came to mind. Like, because like I said, I don't have the desire to get tattoos at all. So it's like I can't figure anything off the top of my head. I'm not someone who's like, adamantly looks at them or anything like that. Like, and I don't see a design and think, okay, I'm going to get that one day, or that would look good on me. I just said, I'm like, oh, that looks good on them. Cool. Move on. Another
correct answer could have been the My Weekly Meltdown logo.
Oh,
there we go.
Sorry, I just like to send in my substitute answer, my weekly meltdown.
There you go. Chris,
Chris, you have one.
Damn it.
But yeah, so I think like ultimately, like I think Kendra's time was here. So I get it. I get the choice.
I feel like you can't. If you think this is the episode you're going to do well, but you can't take the time to show up for it and your looks haven't been the strongest, I kind of do feel like it's your time to go.
Yeah.
But Kendra does come back for a one episode's like off that they do for like All Stars that they released this past year. So good. Get to see how Kendra does.
Yeah.
I think that's not a bad idea to bring someone like her back just based off the fact that, as you said, she couldn't make it. Like, regardless of how well she was performing, she was restricted and she had that sort of story behind her where it was like, what could have been if she was available. It kind of reminds me of, I don't know if you guys have seen The Apprentice or not.
Yeah, I've seen a little bit of it.
So I haven't watched that much of it myself, but I just remembered, as you said, about, Kendra not being able to make it. I'm pretty sure that there's been times on that show where people couldn't make it to tasks as well because of other commitments. So as we were saying, these shows are filmed in a time when the world's functioning really well and people have lives to get back to and everything like that. They're not going a full-time gig with this, reality stint. So,
and it's not like Drag Race where they go back to a hotel and they're sequestered after, after they leave the set. Like these people are actually going off and continuing to engage with the world. So it's a little different,
which is insane in my opinion. I would hate to do that if I was ever a contestant. I would love to just go all in and just completely separate myself from reality. Like, because I'd be stressing, like, if I was in that position.
I think they do that with the Great British Baking Show as well. Like they don't like sequester them. They just like go back to their whatever jobs.
For the exception of this past summer where they brought their families and everything to the castle thing that they were at. And then they all stayed in the castle for that week just because of COVID. But I'm interested to see if they make that as a permanent change or not. Because I think that not because like, I don't think there was any drama. I think that it just posed an interesting kind of dilemma, which was, okay, bring all these people back there. I get to still see my family, but it's like we're having a vacation, but I'm also cooking and baking. And I think it was just a whole different kind of dynamic. So,
yeah. So are we ready to go out of this world? A little alien, a little paranormal? Woo!
I was going to say, this would have been a perfect episode for Allison to be on because of the whole Star Wars ripoff and everything like that.
I know. I was thinking that too.
Yeah, that was honestly when they did that opening title. I'm like, man, and then also because they did motherhood as well. I was like, this is like two of Allison's major things in life.
I know. It's so sad.
Grandma to be and Star Wars, it's like
perfect.
Yeah. May the fierce be with you.
Well, exactly. Yeah. We're going to have to hear from Allison next week as to what she thought about this episode. But in episode 4, we do have their sci-fi myths looks. So well, they not only had to, and by the way, like it's blatantly obvious there is a little bit of scriptedness in the beginning of these episodes, not the Boulay brothers portion, but like when the queens are all meeting up, they're already half in drag. They already know what the assignment is. It's like they're being told what the assignment is when they're already half in drag for it. So clearly the filming schedule of this is a little different. But just so you guys know, like, or as a recap, I mean, so this week they not only have to come up with some kind of science fiction alien look, they also then have to give birth to an alien baby in this look afterwards. So it's not only a floor show challenge, they also have like this really campy scene where they're all giving birth. And some of them, I will say, are so campy and funny. And then other ones are kind of creepy. And I'm here for it. So
literally
the first
blood and guts.
That's right, yeah. The first queen we have is Apora, who is a chicken lady alien. Chris, what did you think about Apora's look and Apora? I keep saying her name wrong. And what else do you?
I don't know if I remember that one very well.
Right here on the screen.
Right on the screen. Hang on. Sorry, I don't remember them very well, unfortunately.
No worries. Well, that probably says something about it then.
Sorry about that.
Say, like, no, it's okay. I would say, like, and I see why you don't remember it, because to me, this should have been the queen that went home. I really wasn't impressed with it.
That's what I remember. Nah.
Yeah, I mean, like, even like the baby delivery was just like popping out an egg, which is like so easy to just like, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And like Abora's been in elimination before, so like clearly like she's on like the bottom and like on the Alps, and like eventually will go home pretty soon. But yeah, I don't know. It's just a lot of fluff, a lot of chicken feathers.
And I do want to point out one other thing, which was the guest judges for this particular episode, which you had Alaska, also known as Alaska Thunderfuck. Alaska is a very popular queen from RuPaul's Drag Race season 5, and then All Stars 2. She's actually, well, I might not.
You can spoil.
She's the winner of All Stars 2. So she's amazing. And so her whole drag character is this idea that she's an alien who came down to Earth. So it's just kind of funny that she could say, so that's why she kind of talks like this. And it's just like a lot of vocal fry. So it's like her character is trying to put on this like super California girl kind of accent thing in order to blend in, but it's really funny. But she also talks like this a lot. So it's just really funny. So Alaska really liked that she was wearing toenails, like nails on her toes, to make the kind of like appearance that she was like a chicken. The other judge is Heclina, who is very well known as kind of like an older generation drag queen, somebody who's been around since the 80s and 90s, but owns a couple of clubs in San Francisco, which are not only just drag venues that are like well-known drag venues, like the top of the top, but also just like a beacon of LGBTQIA culture and such. So she's very well known for San Francisco drag, not necessarily just because of her own drag, but because of what she does to perpetuate the art from a community sense, like as a club owner and such. So if you've ever heard of, I've been there a couple times. It's a lot of fun, but there's a bar in San Francisco called Oasis. She owns it. Okay. I've been there a few times, and actually one of the times I was there, I got to see Erica Clash do and this was after the season, so I knew who Erica was. But
so Erica that's on the show right now.
Yeah. So I got to see her, which is cool.
Yeah. Just quickly, actually, Tyler said before that he's liking Erica. I'm the same, actually. I didn't really have a favorite person going into this sort of 2-episode block because, like I sort of said, a lot of things were kind of blending together for me. But Erica sort of stood out to me as like someone I just really like, you know.
Yeah.
And is Erica male? Like.
Yeah. Yeah.
God, I honestly.
She's very femme.
Really did not think so. I'm like, okay, like
Erica's
the voice was very, very feminine. Like,
let's look it up. They might have they them pronouns now. I don't know, but I'm pretty sure they identify as
choose not to identify. Yeah, but like born a male, like obviously
It's
not going to
always-
discriminate, but
Oh, of course. I think it's always
no.
safe to when they're in drag to say she, her. Oh my God, they're honestly, if you all just go to her Twitter page, this photo, her profile picture is just like so good. Oh, it's so good. Anyway, sorry, I had to say that. I had to express it. She's amazing. Yeah. So she anyway.
Oh,
Erica,
man.
are you okay? Oh
yeah. The gifts just like aren't there anymore.
Yeah, I was about to say not there.
What do you mean?
So
it's not
like,
showing up.
What?
they're
Refresh
like, yeah. Uh-oh.
I thought that Erica had a good costume, but as I sort of said, like it didn't really suit the horror theme. It was a bit too bright and colourful, and
yeah.
It actually reminded me of this. This is a really, really random reference, but it reminded me of a show that was on Nickelodeon. My Life as a Teenage Robot.
Oh, yeah.
That came
watch
out
much
after
of
my
it.
time.
Yeah,
too old.
Yeah, I didn't watch much of it myself, but I just remember that character's appearance. I'm like, that reminds me of something. I'm like, I reckon it's that. Yeah. But yeah, as a judge has said, it was very it was a good costume generally, but yeah,
it's just not edgy or dark enough, and that's what they're really asking for in this competition. Is like, even if you're going to be campy, you have to have some kind of darker theme to it. And hers was just kind of like, I mean, let's not get it twisted. She's an incredible makeup artist, and she's really good at costumes, and she has this really unique eye and lens and such. She's somebody that I just feel like, and they're not like critiquing her drag, they're just critiquing how it applies to the particular challenge.
Yeah,
she's somebody I feel like she would struggle even like on Drag Race, where even if it's not a darker look, they'd be like, why are you always doing anime? So she just has one of those drag styles that I feel like, regardless of whatever the competition is, she's likely just going to have a harder time getting
I actually thought that she would do better on Drag Race. Obviously, I haven't seen much of Drag Race, but I just assumed that because Drag Race seems to be a bit more of a show that's a bit more bright and colourful and stuff like that. I mean, obviously, I imagine that not every episode is like that, but I would have thought that she'd do a lot better. Yeah.
I agree.
Beth, I sent you... Sorry, Beth, I sent you the link to open it and share your screen. Something's like really funky with my internet.
No worries.
So it's probably on my end that those GIFs are not loading. It's like not even loading Facebook. I had to like access it on my phone to send it to you, which is weird.
Oh crap!
I don't know how I'm like still talking to you guys. If
you're good.
Okay. So just while we're waiting, I just wanted to just bring up that I thought that the whole going to labour, giving birth scene was very, very funny, and it was somewhat relatable. And when I say that, do not think what you're thinking when I say relatable. Basically, do you know that game Heads Up that Ellen DeGeneres created?
Yeah.
So we used to play that in high school in drama class, and there was often an action called going into labour.
Oh,
we never actually did it. Like we never tried to act it out. But people used to like, mate, Josh, I'm going to stuff a pencil case, and just have it come out, And it was like that whole gag of, the giving birth just reminded me of that. I was like, man, that just reminds me so much of the fact that like we had to like create a fake birth scene. It's just essentially the same thing, really, isn't it? Like,
well, speaking of fake birth, I mean, obviously, Apora didn't do like the most incredible fake birth. She laid a single egg, but Bitch Puddin' comes out in this alien outfit. And this performance, Tyler, what did you think about Bitch?
I love it. I love how like there's like a unique spin on like every look. Like it's not just the assignment of like freaky like alien giving birth. She's like putting like a 50s housewife spin on it. Like that that is taking it a step forward that like other queens aren't doing. It's doing the extra credit of the assignment, if you will. So I liked it. I was all about it. I loved it.
I pretty much feel the same way. Just for a bit of context for you guys, because I'm on my phone, I don't have the full screen, so I couldn't tell who they were. It was a little bit tricky to see generally. I still couldn't remember the last person, but I do remember the waffles and all of that. That was like a nice touch, as Tyler said. That sort of 50s, housewife. Yeah.
And she's the first queen, along with Disasterina, who, and Erica, actually, the three of them all talk in their floor show this time. I mean, she comes out and she's yelling about whatever the food order is, like that kind of thing. And that's kind of funny. And then Erica's talking like a robot the entire time. And Disasterina's doing, okay, well, I got another thing over here to talk about. And is it this the Disasterina?
But that's what I mean, though, is like, like stepping into the role rather than like just presenting a look. It's like taking it a step further. That, like, to me, Bitch Pudding's like very clearly a front runner in this season.
What's really fun?
I'm sorry, I was about to say, I'm surprised you didn't bring up the quote, which I actually wrote down. Upload me.
Yes.
Is she? My favorite thing is when let's talk about this right now. Actually, if you guys don't mind, now that we've seen both Abhora and Bitch Pudding, obviously there's a little bit of a reconciliation in this episode. Last week we were talking about how we kind of sided with Abhora, like we don't really like that she touched her inappropriately or like without her consent and that kind of thing. This time we're getting a little bit more to the story, which is that it's not really that she got touched inappropriately. It's that her boyfriend just kept bringing it up over and over and over and over. And that we kind of got hints last week, but we're getting it pretty heavily handed now that this was an emotionally abusive relationship that Abhora was in. And she breaks up with her boyfriend while she's at Dragula, which is compounding all of these issues. And so she's taking a lot on Bitch Pudding, and she's gotten everybody to kind of go against Bitch Pudding. And Bitch has been kind of, honestly, I think pretty gracious about all of that, to be perfectly honest. Like, she hasn't really retaliated. She's continued to say, I think you're a first bitch and like you're a good queen and like all that kind of stuff, and hasn't really stooped to a level. But and I think that we're seeing like, okay, Abhora did really well and all these other queens were really dragging on her. And then last episode, she wins the challenge. This episode, she does really well. But meanwhile, Abhora is going the opposite way. What do you guys think about this drama that we're seeing between the two of them?
Oh, it's quite crazy. Does anything like this go on in other seasons by any chance? Like, because obviously it sounds like a lot of them do know each other.
There's drama. There's always drama in these kind of episodes, partially because their drag community is so small comparative to the overall mainstream drag, so that they can't help but know each other.
That's what I was gonna say. Is like I feel like because it's such a small like realm, like it's almost I feel like they all kind of have an understanding with each other that like we're gonna talk a lot of shit to like just make like a good show. But like at the end of the day, like we're all like family, and like we all need to like nothing's like almost nothing. I don't want to say nothing. Almost nothing is like a deal breaker. Like I'm never associating with this person again.
Right.
So obviously you can't cross the line though, as you said. Not everything. Not everything you can get away with.
But you know what I mean.
Situation. For sure. It's all for the TV, the ratings. Getting the.
And they all get it. They all like understand that like they can talk this shit and like have like a reconciliation like the next episode so totally. They're making good TV.
And a lot of it at the end of the day was also like Erica stepping in and saying, I'm sick of all of us being in the middle, and I'm going to play mediator, and I'm going to listen to y'all. And, good on Erica for being like, let's not brush this under the rug, and, points to her for it.
That's why I like Erica, is like all of these scenes where like I feel like there's like more fighting here than Big Brother 10. But like Erica is like the Erica's like
told y'all.
Yeah. You did tell us like within the first 5 minutes they're like throwing shit at each other, but like Erica is like the one that's kind of like reminding everybody like, listen, this is all in good fun, this is all in good entertainment.
And also we're always on the outside of everybody. In real life, we need to support each other. She's a good person to remind.
Love that.
So let's move over to Dolly. So Dolly actually goes home in this episode because the judges say, even though the costume looks great, like what else is there? Like you're just giving us beauty, but we're not really seeing monster here. We're not really seeing anything edgy. The performance was lacking in energy. It was just So
yes.
Do you all agree with that? What are your thoughts on Dolly?
I do agree. It's very like statuesque. It's very like you could just like this could just be like a still photo instead of like a performance. And that's what I think is missing. What do you think, Chris?
Pretty much agree with you, as you said, like still performance.
Yeah.
Dolly also had a moment with James Majesty in this episode where James like kind of hits her just kind of like like that, and she really is like, I don't like when people touch me. And she has to kind of go chat with Victoria Elizabeth Black, and there's kind of a flirt dance going on between the two of them, even though Victoria has a boyfriend at home. There's just I think a lot I think that Dolly says, I think the reason why Victoria and I get along so well is we're both chill stoners who
that's right.
A lot of weed, are very creative, and just like making shit and that kind of thing. And if I can be honest, I also see, even though Victoria Elizabeth Black uses a lot more prosthetics and like this like almost special effects makeup, there's a certain aura about their drag that seems very similar to me. This kind of like ethereal beauty monster almost out of it.
Yeah, I can't wait to talk about Victoria Elizabeth Black's look.
It's a moment.
I'm excited.
I've always felt like Dolly is one of the most beautiful queens I've ever seen, even in these like monstrous things. I think that she's just really gorgeous, but
I actually agree with that as well.
But the beauty isn't everything. You know what I mean?
Correct.
Like you still have to like lean into it. You still have to like perform. You still have to make a character for yourself. Look at Bitch Puddin' and how like how performative that is compared to like Dolly's just kind of, she looks like the Statue of Liberty. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's actually one of the first things that came to mind, like when it came to the costume, as you said, and I actually agree. I was a bit surprised at the doll. How do you pronounce it? Is it pronounced Dolly or
Dolly? You can say Dolly or Dolly.
I originally, when I first read it, I thought it was Dahl, as in the author Roald Dahl. Because obviously it's spelled that way. Dolly. So I didn't know how to say it, but I was a bit surprised they left as early as they did. If I'm honest, I thought they were maybe going to go a bit further. But as you said, it's all about like the certain aspects of drag. As I say, I'm quite new to this stuff, but
that's okay.
Pretty much on the head that it's not just about how you look; it's about how you play the character and perform in a particular task, depending on what it entails and all that type of stuff. I should also mention as well, I've seen a little bit of the Top Model show over the years, and this is obviously, I believe this is a parody of it, right? Like, sort of, that was kind of the premise of it.
Yeah, so this actually begs a deeper question too, which is so much of drag is actually derived from the ball scene, which a lot of shows, including Top Model, even though Top Model is not, it kind of draws from. So the ball scene, if anybody's familiar with the show Pose or from Legendary on HBO Max, these are shows. The ball scene was basically queer, trans, and people of color in New York City, especially, who would kind of say, we don't have the power or the finances to be like the people with power in society. So we're going to create these balls. We're going to create these photo shoots. We're going to create these experiences to show that we have what it takes as well. So they would literally take fabric out of dumpsters, out of whatever they can make. They would make clothes out of other clothes, and there would be categories. So this is when you watch Drag Race, it's all a parody of the ball scene. Category is on the runway, pants. And so they would walk and do their most outrageous, like either outrageous or like something just absolutely that would quote unquote pass. We're going to do corporate realness. So these are people that you can never see yourself because you're not a corporate person, but bitch, you can look like them. You can serve the attitude. You can serve the confidence as if you are a white person with all the privilege in the world. So that's where a lot of this comes from, including Top Model has elements that come from the ball scene specifically because a lot of fashion, specifically in the late 90s, was derived from the ball scene. So Top Model, in a weird way, actually derives from the same things as Dragula and Drag Race. So, and I do think there are probably things that they draw specifically from Top Model, but for the most part, I think they're mostly looking at the drag scene or the drag and ball scenes.
The only major difference I can remember is that they weren't getting the 16-year-old models to be sticking needles up there.
Yeah, they're
on their
probably
arms
not
and stuff.
good. Not in the
And
US,
they weren't paintballs at each other, despite the fact that Dragula does that.
To be fair, how awesome would it be if Top Model started having them shoot paintballs at each other? Like, I mean, that'd be so fun.
I will say for one of the makeovers, they had one of the girls go to a dentist and saw a gap in between their front two teeth to like widen the gap because that was like the look at the time. Yeah. So they've done stuff like that.
They've done stuff. That's true.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned that. Just a quick side note. So I've seen a bit of because I've only watched Top Model. I didn't watch like super close. I was only like a kid when this was a thing because my parents watched it. I was just in the room kind of, but I didn't mind it. Actually, it was kind of funny. I always loved when the girls cried at the end. It was just made me laugh so much. You know, but anyway, I watched the Australian and the American, and funnily enough, there was actually an episode I remember. I don't remember it in detail. Like I said, I was quite young, but I'm pretty sure one of the girls like tried to fight someone. They actually got kicked out.
Oh yeah,
as in like a proper like wrestle. Like they got. I don't remember what it was about, but there was like
sounds about right.
Some crazy stuff went on, which essentially got them kicked out, and they did all the photo shoots and everything, but they were disqualified. It was pretty nuts. Like
yeah,
crazy.
Yeah.
So we'll move on to the next queen, which is Disasterina. So Disasterina was the one in the first episode where they really like clocked her for her inability to really do a performance and such. And they liked her walk a little bit better, but they still feel like it's not quite at the level of what the other girls are able to give performance-wise. She really kind of like relies on being strange and a little different and funny. And what do you all feel about her so far in the competition?
Forgettable.
Okay. What about you, Chris?
So just for what was Disasterina's act again? I was forgettable.
So she was the one that came out and she had almost like the Britney Spears mic and said, "All right, and welcome everybody to the show here," and just like basically was like almost like she did a weird comedy act while she stood still. And then when she gave birth, it was like a weird like creature that had like a couple big eyes on it, and that was about it.
Right. Look, like I said, a lot of these people blending together with me, unfortunately, so I'm probably not the right person to ask. I am watching the show, I promise. I just
yeah. And we also, I agree. We have the looks up on the screen too for you. Just in case.
I'm just looking at it now. I'm just like I do remember it, but like I don't remember it very well.
Yeah.
And the other thing as well is because they change costumes so often, like it's hard to keep track. Particularly Disasterina. Like I seem to remember Disasterina mainly had blue hair, right?
Yeah.
Or was that someone else? I swear
that was somebody else.
Blue. Okay.
Yeah, but I same thing as Dolly. Like it's just a lot of like standing posing instead of like leaning into the performance. I did like the little like robot baby thing that came out of her. That was a step up than a freaking chicken egg. Yeah, I don't know. It's pretty middle of the road for me. I don't think there's too much to say about Disasterina.
Yeah, I think the bootleg. I'll be 100% honest. I'm not a big Disasterina fan for any other reason other than for your same reasons. I just kind of feel like she's kind of forgettable, and like where she comes alive the most is in the confessionals, and even that I'm just kind of like,
kind of a filler queen.
Yeah. So let's move on to Tyler's favorite, Erica Clash, where she's kind of a half robot anime person.
So this is like the perfect week for her, right?
Okay.
And it was a shame that she ended up in the bottom 3 because like when you think like Erica Clash, you kind of think like paranormal, like techie, like
anime.
Supernova anime, yes, like Sailor Moon type of thing. And like of course we see like the big bow here that kind of reminds me of Sailor Moon, but it just I don't think she should have been up for elimination. I think Disasterina should have been there instead, in my opinion. But I feel like production is just like so hard on her for whatever reason.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, I really enjoy Erica as a character, and I thought like the performance was fine. It just didn't fit the theme. Like that was the main problem, I guess. Like it was just a genuinely good performance, but it just didn't quite fit what they were trying to do. Like the demographic was off. Or is that the right terminology? Demographic.
And I feel like I feel like that's like the same note for Erica every week is like. It's kind of there, but like kind of not. Like I feel like it's like trying to put like a square peg in a round hole with Erica in this competition in terms of like I feel like the judges all have a very specific idea of like what they want, and they even like reiterated that like we're giving you guys feedback because we want you guys to transform into what like they said specifically our vision of what we want this like drag star to look like.
Monster.
That was something that stuck out to me, and that's probably why Erica's going up so much, I imagine, because as you're sort of saying, Erica kind of has that exact look that she likes to do. So that's probably why she keeps going up, I imagine, just based off me watching other shows in the past and like other types of characters that are a bit like that sort of do the same thing over and over.
But you have to give her some props, though.
That's what I was gonna say. Like, good for you, girl, for like sticking to your guns and saying no. This is This is who I am.
And it will work in some way, shape, or form as well. Like there will be that one task where she will absolutely thrive because, her, whatever she like, you know what I mean? Like, what she's into is gonna really like stick and be sort of what they were looking for.
Yeah.
So the next queen we have is James Majesty, who is actually the winner of this week. James is the one that looks like I actually did think this was quite clever. The idea that she was kind of like, with like the CD-ROM kind of like cyber monster. I love those heels with like the weird teeth on them. Like she's like half robot, half monster thing. Like I just think it's so interesting. But at the same time, pretty simple concept. It's not like she's like over the top in terms of like what she's put together. What do you all think?
Yeah,
I think she should have won.
I think they wanted to give the win to Bitch Puddin', but they don't want her to be like such a front runner that like they're trying to like even it out a little bit. You know what I mean?
But James Majesty now just becomes the two-time winner.
That's true. Yeah, I mean it's good. It's certainly like in the top half of these looks and these performances and everything. But you're right, Beth. It's just a little simple. It's a too like easy to like lean on like old tech like wires. I kind of wish I saw like a floppy disk instead of a CD, but that ages me a little bit. Chris, what do you think?
Like a vinyl or something? Like
a laser disc, just really. Chris, do you think that there's a difference between the way that James is selling sex and beauty, quote unquote, on the runway and Dolly is doing it, which Dolly was the one that ends up going home this week?
Yeah, I don't. I think yes, yeah. I mean, Dolly, as you sort of said, was the one that sort of didn't really play into the character as much. And if we're talking about like sex, I mean, that's very, role play. Like,
I will say like at least James is like squatting down and like, giving like serving like a little more motion to it, right? Like it's
she's telling a story. She's telling a story. She's kind of like fucking herself with a CD. Like, I mean, there's a difference there. She always finds a way, even though she's hypersexualized, to like tell a story. For the exception of the Wild West, where she just kind of swung on a swing and that was it. Like, she does it in a way that I feel like Dolly is kind of missing. Dolly's just like, look at how beautiful I am. And James is like, look at how sexy I am. I'm even going to like, do you like that? Like, there's like a little bit more interaction almost.
Like you're not just like leaning on the beauty. You're like, that's like an aspect of it instead of just like, look at me.
Right.
If that makes any sense.
Do you reckon that they have an OnlyFans right now? Because I mean that's content that would suit that very well.
There you go. Yeah. So James has some weird things that you'll learn about in the next couple episodes. I'll say that.
Okay.
I knew about this before this season, And there's a little bit of like quote unquote clarity, but I don't know if I believe it. So that's all I'm going to tease you with.
Chris, maybe James does have an OnlyFans.
Yeah, I was about to say.
I wouldn't be shocked. James probably does have an OnlyFans. That's not even a joke.
I was just about to say, it kind of reminds me of speaking of OnlyFans, the one Survivor contestant who's quite prominent on it right now in
Aussie.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys remember or not or knew this, but he did a show like that was porno before Cook Islands.
I do remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I believe it filmed shortly before he played Survivor. But it was a bit like a Brian Heidick situation, if you knew about that, where it sort of wasn't told that he did acting in that industry, and then it sort of came out afterwards. And I mean, look, you know,
to any patrons watching, don't go like googling Aussie now. It's not that impressive. I've seen it.
It's pinned on his Twitter. Like you can go to his pinned tweet on his Twitter and just see his dick. It's fine.
How are the images not censored or reported and taken down? Like I don't
Twitter
care
doesn't
what he
care.
does. I don't care what he does. I to be honest, good on him for doing it. He's something he loves, something he's passionate about. Like go for it. But the problem is, Aussie, you're someone who kids look up to and want to be like when they see you in the challenges. They don't want to see your freaking genitals. Like,
right?
Hey, you know what? That's not true. I know some kids who would love to be
the
just
girls
like
buy it, but not people like me. We want to see him, you know, on Ninja Warrior or something because he's actually done that before. Like, we don't want to be seeing his dick. Like,
okay, wait. I want to talk about Victoria now because
here we go.
This should have been the winner of the challenge. Like, it's just so like slimy, like goopy. And plus, like, if I had a nickel for every time they said titties in this episode, but I feel like this look like encapsulates titties the most. It's just so different than like Victoria's not leaning on any kind of like props or like I feel like this is like the opposite of Dolly, right? Where this is like all performance and all like it is such a like legit like I could legit see this in like a horror like alien movie. It's that good. Like the execution is just so like, and even like when she's like giving birth, it just looks so fucking cool and real.
Also, she could do the clicking sound like in Signs, like those aliens. Like when she was giving birth, I can't even do it.
Yeah. It was so good. I loved it.
Yeah, that one really stood out to me, and purely because I don't think any other queen had this, but she had the baby bump, which obviously is a sign of being pregnant. That was what stood out to me immediately. I'm like, oh, yep. I mean, she's fitting the bill quite well. I mean, I still thought that, you know, was it James? So I'm so bad with these drag names. Like, I always get them mixed up all the time.
You're good.
So James was who won it. Like, obviously, I thought performance-wise, it was like, it nailed it, but this one easily, you know, deserving as well for sure. Like, you know,
this is my favorite look out of the first 4 episodes.
Like, I think 1000%. That the issue, and I agree, this is now my 3rd time watching this season. I'm agreeing now. I totally agreed with you, Tyler, the first 2 times I watched this. This is the first time I've watched it and went, I get it now. Which is,
okay.
I don't see this as a drag outfit. I see this as I put on a costume that sure took a lot of effort to put together, but I don't get drag. Out of it.
It's a bit bland, I guess you could say.
It's not even that it's bland, because it is different because you see breasts in a pregnant belly and such. So like that's bland, supposed to be it, but like it's
give
just
us like huge eyelashes, I think is what they said, you know, right?
Yeah, like something like that could have been like a contoured face or just I don't know what it could have been, but or like a wig, even just like something ridiculous.
Sorry, that's what I meant when I said bland. Like it sort of didn't have much to it other than the obvious.
Yeah, okay. When I see this, the fact that everyone goes, I could see this in a movie right now. I'm like, that's not what drag is, though. Drag is not supposed to be like, you just put this in a movie and you're good to go. You're supposed to be, it's like drag is larger than life, making fun of, kind of, you know, it's a little tongue in cheek. It's a little, you know, we're all in the wink, wink, nudge, nudge kind of thing. And you get that with something like Bitch Pudding. You don't get that with something like Victoria Elizabeth Black. And in my opinion, this is the first time I've watched it and have not felt like Victoria should have won. I definitely felt like that the first couple times. This time I actually felt Bitch Pudding should have won this episode. But all of that said, this is amazing. Like, I'm not going to sit back and say like, oh, it's too costumey. It's not even that it's costumey. It's just like, it's so good that it doesn't come across as like drag show. Do you know what I mean?
I totally get that. That makes a lot of sense.
But I love the slime, like this, like That's what makes it for me. If she just came out and that, I'd be like, ugh.
You can like smell it through the TV. You can like kind of like feel it through like Netflix. You know what I mean? It just I don't know.
I know you talk about that sort of mesmerizing effect that something will have on you when you watch it. Like, and I totally agree. Having the slime was a great feature for it being sci-fi based for sure.
Totally. All right. So going into the next episode, the queens we have are Abhora, Bitch Pudding, Disasterina, Erica Clash, James Majesty, and Victoria Elizabeth Black. We're at the top 6. Who do you think is going to go home next?
I feel like it's, and I hate to say this because she's my favorite, but I feel like it's Erica's time, unfortunately, because she's just like refusing to change her brand.
I pretty much agree. Like, without trying to copy you, it's just because, as you said, it's the sameness. Like, I hate to say it because as a person, best person on the cast, without a doubt, I'd say it. But yeah.
And then who do you think is definitely surviving the next 2 episodes and we will see in the top 4?
I'm going to say Victoria Elizabeth Black, just because I am a huge fan of this look.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, a lot of these characters are very much blending in together for me. I guess just based off statistics, Beth, if you're able to sort of give me a little bit of a recap. So who's won sort of the most challenge? Is it Victoria that's won the most, or
no?
So far?
James has won 2, Victoria's won 1, and Bitch Pudding has won 1.
Right. Okay. I mean, just based off that, I would say James.
Okay.
But like the thing is, like, because James was very creative in this episode, it kind of makes me think that they're one of those sort of high ceiling type of people that could very much thrive in many different areas, if that makes sense. Like having a very creative mind, and not just because they won, but just generally speaking, just super creative. Like,
excellent.
Yep.
So next week we will watch episodes 5 and 6, and if I recall correctly, are there 7? No, there are 8 episodes, or there's 10 episodes. So
yeah, I saw 10.
It's a little weird. There's a final 4 where nothing really happens, and then there's a final 4 where something does happen, and then there's a reunion, and then there's a top 3. So I'm kind of happy that we're doing 2s together, because episodes 7 and 8, like there's only one elimination between that, and then 9 and 10 you get like the reunion, and then you get the finale.
Yeah.
So it works out well.
You could say that the middle bit's a bit of a drag.
What a beautiful pun to end the show here. But Chris, I want to extend a big thank you for hopping on with us and talking Dragula. I hope you had a good time with us. Always good to hear from all of our patrons and hear what you guys are up to, and hear all of your thoughts about Dragula, because clearly, I liked Victoria Black, but like clearly, Beth telling me that it's a good look but not a good drag look, like that makes me think a little bit differently in terms of like what to look for in these next episodes. So always hearing like fresh perspectives from Beth or from you, Chris, or if we're having like Matt Henning on next week or something, or even Allison with all of her like horror movie knowledge, like it's I feel like everybody's bringing a little bit something different to the table in terms of their perspectives. Always happy to hear that. And so thank you so much for joining us, Chris.
Yeah, no, it's all good. Like I said, I'm a newbie, so I mean, my perspective is always going to be very different to you guys, particularly you, Beth. I mean, you don't do podcasting for RHAP. You just you don't know anything about drag. It's like
she's the new.
Different.
Just learning a little bit about it.
Yeah, exactly. You're so new. Like, we're at the exact same. Obviously we're not. yeah, so it's like, I mean, I got a completely fresh perspective on this whole thing, and
which is refreshing for us too. So
yeah, totally.
I hope I didn't sound too cringe. Like I said, I wish I could.
No, not at all.
Better. I think
you're great.
The problem I have is that I think because, sorry to just go off a slight tangent. So I tried watching the challenge last year, which obviously you guys covered, and the one major problem I had with that show was the fact that you had people playing like 10 times, and because I was brand new in season 35, and I see these two guys, Bananas and Wes, going about, oh, every single time we've been on this show, we've always been against the show. I'm just like, oh shit, like this is my first episode. You say I have to watch 8 seasons worth now to get what's going on. Like with the drama and everything like that, and all like talking about people's experiences, I got no idea. I'm like, what the hell is going on? Like,
and we picked like the stalest season ever to cover, so I don't blame you for not enjoying it. I feel so bad for Beth.
Like it very much went up for me, episodes 3 and 4. But yeah, it was a little bit tricky to understand what was going on. But I feel like I understand things a lot better now. I've sort of a few episodes in, you know.
Totally. Absolutely. Cool. Well, Chris, where can we find you on social media?
If you want to be found.
If you want to be found.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I'm happy. Yeah, so my main one that I sort of post on most regularly would be Instagram at chrisd0707. Don't tell anyone that's my date of birth. It's in July. But yeah, and then Twitter is the exact same.
Excellent.
I never used Twitter very much until the last few weeks. Actually, now I'm right into it. So I wouldn't say I'm full addicted, but I'm on a lot more. And I actually just changed my username to that. It was originally Survival Lover 85. It was a very cliche alias. I just literally used it to stalk people and, you know, check up on the latest news. I was not posting whatsoever. Now I'm actually kind of okay with doing that.
There you go. Cool. Well, yeah. So patrons, we'll be back next week to cover episodes 5 and 6. Chris, we're gonna do the outro. Just hang out backstage and we'll say bye to you before signing off. But everybody else, have a great rest of your night, and we'll see you guys next week. Bye.
Bye.
Beth, can you end the show? It's like not